killed Elizabeth Short, the woman who became known as the Black Dahlia. This 1947 murder case remains one of America's most infamous unsolved mysteries. Short, a young aspiring actress, was found brutally murdered in a vacant lot in Los Angeles, her body mutilated and drained of blood. The shocking nature of her death sent shockwaves through the city, capturing the attention of the media and the public alike. As detectives delved into her life, they uncovered a complex tapestry of dreams, disappointments, and dark secrets. Short was often seen in a striking black dress, which led to her posthumous nickname. Speculation swirled around her connections with Hollywood's elite and the possibility of a serial killer on the loose. Countless theories emerged, implicating everyone from local doctors to infamous mobsters. The investigation was plagued by false confessions and media frenzy, complicating the search for truth. Despite extensive inquiries, the case went cold, leaving only fragments of a life cut short and a haunting legacy that continues to inspire books, films, and endless speculation decades later. What truly happened to the Black Dahlia remains an enduring question in the annals of crime history.
The Black Dahlia is one of America's most famous cold cases, and over the years it's definitely grown a cult following, not just because of how horrific the case was, but because of how difficult it's been to solve. Now this case takes us back to January 15th of 1947 in Los Angeles. That was when a woman was going out for a walk with her young child when she came across a body on Leimert Park. Now at first the woman thought that the body was actually a mannequin because of the way it was positioned. But when she took a closer look, she realized what was actually going on. The body would turn out to be that of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short. And essentially her body had been cut in half and drained of almost all of its blood. And her organs had been removed from her body and neatly tucked underneath her. But it gets even worse. Chunks of flesh were also missing from her body, and in her stomach they discovered feces, which led authorities to believe that she had been forced to eat them before she passed away. But not only that, her face had also been cut from ear to ear, giving her a very eerie smile similar to that of the Joker. Because her body had been drained of almost all of its blood, authorities immediately believed that she had had her life taken elsewhere and then her body had been transported. And next to her body were also a few old cement sacks that had bloodstains on them, which police believe were used to transport her body. And because Elizabeth had applied for a job as a clerk within the US Army, it was fairly easy to identify her using her fingerprints. But they also discovered that she had been arrested for underage drinking. And sadly, this didn't do very much to help her case at all. Once the media outlets heard about her underage drinking, they took this and absolutely ran with it. And instead of painting her as a woman who was the victim of a horrific crime, the media outlets just painted salacious stories of her. Instead, they ended up branding Elizabeth Short as some sort of sexual deviant, with some of the stories claiming that she knew well over 50 men and was even seen with approximately 25 men in the 60 days leading up to her passing. With some media outlets even claiming that she was some sort of tease and that she liked to do this for fun because she was apparently a lesbian. But none of these stories were ever proven as factual, and they all just stayed as rumors. But the press did go on to give her the name that we now know her as, the Black Dahlia. And that was because apparently she liked to wear a lot of black sheer clothing, which was in reference to another movie called The Blue Dahlia that was out at the time. As the press dug a little bit deeper, they did come to know that she was an aspiring actress in Hollywood. And although she didn't have any film credits to her name at the time, she was trying to make it. And sadly, she had only been in LA for 6 months before she passed away, working as a waitress. Then on January 21st, about a week after the body was found, the Examiner received a call from a person claiming to be the murderer. And as proof, they said that they would be sending several of her belongings to the newspaper. And on the 24th, the Examiner received a package with Elizabeth's birth certificate, photos, business cards, and an address book with the name Mark Hansen on the cover. All of these items had been wiped down with gasoline, which meant that no fingerprints were left behind. But they were able to gather a partial fingerprint that was found on the envelope, but unfortunately it was damaged in transportation and therefore never analyzed. Then on January 26th, another letter arrived taunting the police and then telling them to meet at a certain location. The police arrived at the appointed time and place, but no one ever showed up. Then another letter was sent shortly after that telling the police that they had changed their mind. Again, this letter had also been wiped clean with gasoline. During the investigation, police had over 150 main suspects, and they even had over 60 people falsely confess to what happened to Elizabeth. But as time went on, the case just grew colder and colder. But then in 1999 came a very interesting break in the case. Retired LAPD officer Steve Hodel was going through his dad's belongings when he noticed 2 photos of a woman that looked a lot like Elizabeth Short. And when he discovered these images, he decided to use his own investigation skills as a police officer to look into his own father. And this was his father, George Hodel, who was actually one of the main suspects back in the investigation shortly after the unaliving had happened. Now, Steve did quite a lot of digging. He went through newspaper archives, witness interviews, and even filed a Freedom of Information Act to obtain FBI files on the case. He even had a handwriting expert compare samples of his father's writing to the writing on some of the notes that were sent to the press. And the analysis concluded that there was a very strong possibility that his father's handwriting matched, but the results were not conclusive. Even more interesting is that George Hodel was actually a doctor, which meant that he would have had the necessary training to cut Elizabeth's body in half and to remove all of her organs. But on top of all of that, Steve also found a folder with a receipt dated a few days before the murder for a large bag of concrete, which was the same size and brand as the concrete found near Elizabeth Short's body. And in 1950, police were so sure that George Hodel was the one responsible for what happened to Elizabeth that they even bugged his home. Unfortunately, at the time, they were never able to fully prove that he was the one responsible. Because of all of the investigation work Steve did on his father, authorities today say that if George were still alive, they would have enough to indict him for the Elizabeth Short murder. But to this day, there are still people continuously confessing, and that number has reached well over 500 people. Unfortunately, we still don't know 100% sure who was responsible for taking the life of Elizabeth Short. But like always, let me know in the comments, do you think George Hodel did it or do you think it was somebody else?
The Black Dahlia unaliving refers to the brutal and unsolved killing of Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old aspiring actress in Los Angeles in 1947. Her mutilated body was discovered on January 15 in a vacant lot, bisected at the waist and severely mutilated. The case drew massive media attention due to the gruesome nature of the crime and Short's striking appearance. Despite numerous suspects and extensive investigations over the decades, the identity of her killer remains unknown, making it one of the most infamous unsolved cases in American history.
The Black Dahlia case is one of the most notorious and mysterious unsolved crimes in US history. The fateful event took place in Los Angeles on January 15, 1947. On that day, Betty Bersinger and her daughter were walking in a deserted area when they came across what they initially believed was a mannequin. However, upon closer inspection, they discovered the mutilated and slashed body of Elizabeth Short, who would later be known as the Black Dahlia. Elizabeth Short, born on July 29, 1924 in Boston, was only 22 at the time of her tragic death. Her life was marked by adversity, from her father's business going bankrupt during the '29 crisis to her attempt to become an actress and model in Hollywood. Desperation led her father to fake his suicide, leaving Elizabeth and her sisters in a situation of extreme poverty. Determined to change her fate, Elizabeth moved to Los Angeles in search of opportunities in the entertainment industry. On the day of her death, Elizabeth's body was found in an empty lot, severed in two from the waist. The killer not only made precise cuts, but also removed all internal organs, leaving the body without a single drop of blood. The method used, known as the Glasgow Smile, involved cutting the victim's mouth from ear to ear, creating a disturbing expression on the deceased's face. The enigma of the Black Dahlia lies in the brutality of the crime and the lack of resolution. Despite the efforts of the police and the numerous suspects interviewed, the case remains unsolved to this day. Over 400 men were considered suspects, including the owner of a bar where Elizabeth used to frequent, Mark Hansen. However, no charges were successful and Hansen was ruled out as a suspect. An intriguing theory arises from Steve Hodel, who claimed that his father, George Hodel, was responsible for the murder. George Hodel, a doctor with surgical knowledge, was a suspect in his time but was never convicted. The evidence collected by Steve Hodel, including photographs and details of his father's life, has contributed to speculation about George Hodel's possible connection to the crime.
Who was the Black Dahlia? and what really happened to her. On January 15, 1947, the body of Elizabeth Short was discovered in a vacant lot in Los Angeles, her gruesome murder shocking the nation. Nicknamed the Black Dahlia for her dark attire and mysterious allure, Elizabeth was a young, aspiring actress with dreams of stardom. Her life, however, turned into a tragic tale that captured the public's imagination. The discovery of her mutilated body, severed at the waist and drained of blood, sparked a media frenzy. Investigators were baffled, finding no immediate suspects. The case was further complicated by the multitude of tips from the public, many leading nowhere. Speculation swirled. Was it a deranged killer or a conspiracy involving Hollywood elites? As the press sensationalized the story, Elizabeth Short became a symbol of the dark side of the American dream. Despite numerous theories and suspects, her murder remains officially unsolved, leaving a haunting legacy. Decades later, the Black Dahlia continues to fascinate, embodying a chilling mystery that combines tragedy, glamour, and the relentless pursuit of truth. What secrets did Elizabeth take to her grave?
Hey guys, we're over here at the Mountain View Cemetery in Oakland, California. Actually right behind me where you see those people, we're gonna go visit the grave of Elizabeth Short, better known as the Black Dahlia. So probably the most infamous murder case that's unsolved in like Hollywood, but I wanted to come by and show you guys because it's right there. This cemetery is absolutely beautiful. It's huge too. I mean, it is absolutely huge. And she's in a grave it's marked, but it's not listed as her being here. So if you were coming to look, you got to know where it's at, because it's quite a hunt to find it. But I found it my last time here. She's right here on this hillside. So this is where her final resting spot is. And you see people have left her things. There's some, flowers that have died and little knickknacks here and there. But right there, Elizabeth Short, Black Dahlia, and then a little red thimble. I left that here months ago when I did a video on her. I'm surprised it's still here, but it's pretty awesome. I heard she was into fashion, so I decided to leave a little thimble of thread, right? So I'm gonna leave her a little rock. Other people have left stuff, but I'm just gonna leave her a little rock right here. Pretty cool. You always get these weird feelings when you come to these famous graves like this, but it's just something I kind of felt like I wanted to do, come and pay respects to her, because, she lost her life at a very, very young age, and it still hasn't been solved. I mean, there's theories about what happened, but it's not solved yet.
I was found cut in two in Los Angeles over 70 years ago, and the culprit has still not been found. My name is Elizabeth Short, and I am also known by the nickname the Black Dahlia. I was 22 years old and originally from Boston. I had decided to move to Los Angeles in the hopes of becoming an actress, a dream I had since I was a little girl. However, on January 15, 1947, my body was discovered in an empty lot completely drained of blood, meticulously cleaned and severed in two at the waist. My face had been slashed to create a gruesome smile, which further solidified the nickname the media gave me, the Black Dahlia. My murder quickly captured the attention of the media and the public, becoming one of the most highly publicized criminal investigations of the time. Unfortunately, despite significant efforts by the Los Angeles police, no culprit would ever be found. Numerous theories and suspects emerged over the years, but none were confirmed as the perpetrator. Some even began to suggest that I had been killed by the Zodiac Killer. However, my case remains a mystery to this day, and continues to be one of the most enigmatic crimes in the United States.
My body was cut in half and my entire body was drained of blood. The police have been searching for decades, but no one knows who the killer is yet. I was born on July 29, 1924, in Hyde Park, Boston. My parents, Cleo and Phoebe Short, were loving and provided a nurturing home for me and my four sisters. Growing up, I had dreams of becoming an actress, a star in the Hollywood sky. But my life took a tragic turn on January 9, 1947, in Los Angeles. It was a cold and dark morning when my body was discovered in a vacant lot at 39th Street and Norton Avenue. I was only 22 years old. The investigation into my murder was intense, capturing the attention of the media and the public. They dubbed me the Black Dahlia due to my dark hair, fashion sense, and the mysterious circumstances surrounding my death. The case remains one of the most infamous and unsolved crimes in American history. As the authorities delved into my life, they discovered that I had been an aspiring actress, trying to make my mark in Hollywood. I had traveled to Los Angeles in the hope of fulfilling my dreams. It was there that my life took a tragic turn, ending in a gruesome murder. My time in Los Angeles was filled with both hope and despair. I met a number of people who promised to help me in my pursuit of stardom, but the glitz and glamour of Hollywood often concealed a darker reality. I was drawn into a world of vice and temptation, surrounded by people who had ulterior motives. The details of my murder were horrifying. I had been brutally assaulted and mutilated. My body was severed at the waist and left on display, a grotesque spectacle for all to see. The police worked tirelessly to find my killer, but their efforts were in vain. The case remains open, haunting the annals of crime history. As the years passed, my story became a symbol of tragedy and lost potential. The Black Dahlia case captivated the public's imagination, spawning countless theories and speculations. Some believe that my killer was a deranged psychopath, while others think it was the work of a serial killer. Whatever the truth may be, I am forever remembered as Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia. My life was cut short in a brutal act of violence, leaving behind a legacy of mystery and intrigue. The case remains unsolved. A reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the glimmering lights of Hollywood. If you want to hear my stories about other people, please consider following us. Thank you.
I was brutally murdered. My mouth was slashed from ear to ear, and my chest was cut open, creating a shocking scene. My case remains the biggest mystery in Hollywood. I am Elizabeth Short, born in 1924 in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. My life faced difficulties from a young age. I moved to California with my father after he divorced my mother. At 19, I relocated to Los Angeles to pursue my dream of becoming an actress, but my acting career didn't take off. To make ends meet, I frequented nightclubs, associating with various types of men, from soldiers and businessmen to young men. Swift and complicated relationships led to my nationwide fame, but sadly, my reputation stemmed from the brutal murder that ended my life. On January 15, 1947, a housewife discovered my mutilated body while taking a walk. My face was slashed from the corner of my mouth to my ears. The entirety of my thigh and chest were cut away. My torso was severed at the waist. Intestines were placed below my buttocks, arms wrapped around my head, and legs spread wide. Beside me was a message, "The Black Dahlia Avenger," my nickname. Police and detectives immediately launched an investigation. All those under suspicion were interrogated. However, no evidence tied them to the crime. On February 3, 1947, the perpetrator sent a package containing all my personal belongings and documents to a newspaper, along with a list of 75 men I had been involved with, mocking the police. Even though 60 people confessed to being the murderer, the police couldn't prove their guilt. To this day, over 70 years later, my death remains Hollywood's most enigmatic case. Although my life ended painfully and remains unresolved, I hope that my situation can serve as a cautionary tale about crime and brutality in society.